Yo, what's good, guys? It's Cruz here, and I get a lot of questions asked about flick curves and what do I mean by flick curving and the potential of using them, right? Or when you should use them, what certain tiles should you use them on, and what's the best way of learning them or figuring them out. And in this video, I'm going to attempt to show you guys how to do flick curves. I'm going to keep this very basic and very simple, as I do have the display on for my controller. I did do a video where you could see the inputs I'm pressing. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. We're going to load into a customs, and I'm just going to show you when and how to do them, I guess, based off of the inputs you're seeing. And yeah, because I think it's one of Billy's best ways to play out most tiles, in my opinion. I think you should use it 90% of the time if you have the accuracy enough and if you're consistent with it, right? Of course, the margin of error is pretty high when going for these, but it really opens windows and doors to a lot of tiles. And honestly, a lot of tiles seem very scary to play against because of how fast you round that corner. A lot of people don't really expect you to round it as quickly as you do. And that's just because the benefit of you flicking outward, which causes Billy to basically create a sharper angle. Think of it kind of like a check mark, right? You go out, then you come back in like a check mark. And that's essentially what we're doing for like 90% of the tiles. You hold that middle ground and then you flick out, come back in at a sharper angle, and you get them just before they round the corner. Or oftentimes it really throws them off because of how fast you can clear that distance. I will say this though, I will preface this. It's best when you have palette control. When the server, my bad, I can't talk. When the survivor has the palette control, it's a little bit more difficult because it's you gambling on them either throwing it or trying to greed, right? 9 times out of 10, they're going to throw it on your face and you're going to get stunned. That's just what's going to happen. Unless their ping is really bad, then you're going to make them taste of the palette. But anyways, guys, enough yapping. We're going to get into a custom. I'm going to show you some tiles, show you my approach to them, and tell you the difference between it with engraving speed and overdrive speed. Alright guys, so here we are, spawned into auto even. No better place than to do this than auto even, in my opinion. And no better tile to start with than the standard truck tile that you're going to see very often, right? So let me start off with saying this, right? You obviously have 90-degree curves. And what is the difference between a flick curve and a 90-degree curve, or just your standard curve in general, right? And the difference is, as I stated earlier, is it's essentially you looking outward, right? Just how I did right now. And then creating a sharper angle for you to get around the truck a little bit sooner than you would when rounding the corner with your chainsaw. And, you know, there's multiple ways you could go about this. You could flick it like that, right? A mild flick. Never mind those bots cranking on me. Damn. Or you could just simply angle outward, which allows you to do it. And what allows this is you now have a full 1 second turn rate duration. You have 1 full second in which Billy's sensitivity for his chainsaw is extremely high, allowing you to do those curves very, what's the word I'm looking for? Reliably, I guess, because back in the day, if you angled outward or if you didn't round that corner, you're not gonna round the corner enough. You're gonna bump, right? So that's where we kind of take the old school way of curving out the window and introduce flick curving, like how I just did right now. When should you do flick curving? Well, honestly, I think you could use it in a various multitude of ways. You could use it on a multitude of tiles, but generally speaking, you want to hold this middle, right? This is your threat for flicking. No matter which way you go, it's scary because 9 times out of 10, you're going to round it and you're going to get them. It's definitely devastating on trucks, especially in overdrive, because you hold this middle ground and just like that, boom, they get got. And if they're not quick enough to react, they're going to go down. And you'll be surprised at how often you just flicking outward works. We're gonna move over to Shaq. Right? Say I'm running through them and I round the corner fully. That might give them enough distance to round that corner on time. But let's say I'm going after them and I see them through and oh, I bumped. Never mind that. Okay, and I'm revving and I flick. That slight flick could give you enough distance just to catch them. And that's another way you could use flick curves, is rounding corners at a sharper angle. And oftentimes it throws so many serves off guard because they don't expect it, right? They don't expect you to just out of nowhere come out the corner. Just like that. Boom. And another type of flick curving I want to get into, right, which is the most common version of it. And it's, called by another name, but that is the S curve. We have another deadly tool to play with, right, in which you hold this ground and then you S curve it. Essentially, you flick around the car from the position you're holding. And the scary part about this is, especially in overdrive, and you can do it from both ways. This is another form of flick curving, in my opinion. Yes, it is called the S curve. It is called the S flick. Whatever you want to call it. But for me, it categorizes itself as a flick, and it's something you should learn on most tiles because it really throws off some serves, that are trying to hold those check spots on you, right, on certain tiles. Instead of going for your standard curve, you'll oftentimes find S curves are a lot more effective. Essentially, right, you move your camera to the left as soon as you start chainsaw sprint, then back to the right. Let me show you in the right here. So just like that, I go one way then back really fast. Taking full advantage of the 1 second turn duration. And if you're having an issue with collision, I would say practice on these sorts of cars that have no collision. And these ones, are very scary because you could S curve that way with the full 1 second turn duration. If someone's holding this check spot, or even right here, if you go deep enough, you're going to get them. You're going to get them. As you could see, I could basically create a C shape all the way around the car. I could curve all the way around this car because of no collision. And the last thing I want to cover is, let me get my overdrive. Is overdrive flick curving, right? It's basically the same thing. You're flicking just a little bit more harder when you have overdrive, but the angles get more absurd when you're in overdrive. Say we have this tile. Now that I'm in overdrive, I could flick far more aggressively and far deeper. As you can see, pretty much right there, I kind of messed it up. You could go definitely a lot sharper. Oh my goodness, bro. What a down. What a down. How would I approach certain tiles, especially with the mindset of flick curving in general? Of course, you have your standard curves, you have your 180s, you have your mind games. That's all tailored to how you play Billy, right? Whatever you choose to do, this is what I choose to do. There's no real right or wrong for these. It's essentially however you want to play it, right? So you could do something as basic as that. You could, hold the top and then 180 You could, go back and forth, flick your camera a lot, move your red stain a lot, then curve back in. There's so much room to play with when it comes to mind gaming, but I just want to give you how I approach like 90% of my tiles, especially in pubs, if you're not trying to go for curves and you're just going for more consistency. So for standard curves, I'll probably hold the middle ground, then flick out towards them, either from the left or right. It really depends on their positioning. I have the C tile. One of the most common tiles you're probably going to see. Could 180 it, as you could see. I will definitely keep this in mind. Serves are prone to tuck in this little hole. So what you can do, right, is fake a curve and just legit walk around the corner and get them if they're going to tuck. You could flick into it. But if you're to curve this, it's best to curve into the pallet at all times, unless you condition your serves to not tuck, and then you go full send the curve. Now I'm in overdrive. Boom, like that. Could flick that way. Also, another thing you could do with the full 1 second turn duration is stay at this top, right, and see how I curve basically past it, right? I'm not curving around the object. I'm curving just completely into the object. And that's only doable because of the 1 second turn duration and taking it from a wider angle. You could also play majority of the tiles like this. You can play trucks like this, most fillers like this, and it will throw off any serves that are just like holding this check spot, right? They're holding this, right? Seeing if you're going to curve in or out, boom, seeing if you're going to 180 back into them. And that's a good way of throwing them off, right? You mind game, threaten the 180, and essentially curve them as they're holding that little check spot. So we have probably one of the most common auto haven tiles you're ever going to see. There's a multitude of ways of playing this. You could S-curve it. One thing you'll also notice with this tile is there's slightly no collision with some of this tile, like in the front. So you kind of slide off of it, but be careful of that because you could just slide into this tire. But yeah, you could S-curve it. One of the best ways of playing it is just holding the palette control, and oftentimes it throws off serves a lot because of your red stain manipulation is hiding behind the palette, and it really throws them off. So you could always do something like this. That was a little wide on my part. The dumpster tile. What's the best way to play this? And I'm gonna be completely honest, this is a very difficult tile to curve. There's a lot of ways you could go about it. Oh, that was so wide. You could curve, right, from the outside, holding palette. You could do that. You could curve from, again, palette to the inside. It's a little bit harder. You're probably going to bump. There you go. That often gets them a lot. And personally, my favorite way to curve this one is going for that wide curve angle, which usually gets them because they're holding like this spot right here, right? They're holding the top. They're trying to be cheeky, and boom. And if they hold W away, you could get them on this end if they choose to play the short side. That's by far my favorite way to play it. Of course, like most horizontal tiles, you could S-curve it again from the palette side or from the tire side. To each their own, essentially.
Only 5 seconds. I mean, that's the 50. One of block 50. One of like roughly 50. I'm gonna find out.
Is that where I actually live?